Let me just put a provocation on the table. Something very interesting has happened in the last 3-4 years concerning climate change and global warming. And it is that 50 years of science all converged into Al Gore's movie, basically, The Inconvenient Truth. And there was this figure, Al Gore, going around with his slideshow and his movie, and he kind of tilted the balance somehow in terms of public awareness. Do we need a wet, Inconvenient Truth movie, an ocean Al Gore, and who that can be?
Well, I think we do need the Ocean Acidity sequel to The Inconvenient Truth, and believe me, I've pitched that to the former Vice President. And I think there are a number of outfits in Hollywood that are, and around the world, that are thinking about the next ocean movie. There's a very distinguished French director who's making a wonderful movie about the oceans. I think I think there are other iconic figures that have done this. I often mention Governor Schwarzenegger in California, which, let's be honest, he's an unlikely hero, and yet in this nation state of California, which at least until a month ago was the 8th largest economy in the world, he almost single-handedly diffused this political debate. So the people in the United States who refused to watch Al Gore's movie because he was the wrong side of politics were able to hear from the opposite side of politics in Governor Schwarzenegger essentially the same message. So I think that it's true that there are iconic leaders. They can be movie stars, they can be politicians, they can be President Sarkozy, Chancellor Merkel. I think there are these very rare politicians. I like to say that every politician is elected from a terrestrial electorate. In English I say dirt rules. And it's only the rare politician that also takes on the job of representing the ocean. But I think we have some outstanding leaders in Europe, and I hope there'll be, either one of the two people who might be president of the United States, I think will step up and we'll see more leadership. So in my short time here, I've learned, don't underestimate the importance of how quickly things can change when strong leaders stand up and say, we must act.
There was another question.
Sorry, yeah.
Who has the microphone?
Bruno.
Yes.
Okay. On a sur l'estrade, c'est Pierre Erwes de BioMarine, on a sur l'estrade une somme prestigieuse de personnalités, et moi je voudrais savoir, on vous a tous mis à contribution pour BioMarine, mais je voudrais savoir en fait ce qu'on va faire en partant d'ici. Qu'est-ce qu'on va décider et qu'est-ce qu'on va décider de pratique? Est-ce que BioMarine, ça va être encore un autre forum où on s'est tous vus, on aura passé du bon temps, on aura discuté, on aura bu? Ou est-ce qu'on va se décider à prendre quelques actions et quel type d'action on va prendre? Moi, ce que je voudrais, c'est que symboliquement, et plus que symboliquement, on sorte de là avec quelque chose de concret. Alors, on a au moins labellisé 2-3 projets, on a vu qu'on pouvait un petit peu avancer, mais puisque vous êtes tous sur l'estrade, et moi je crois beaucoup dans ce que vous dites, aidez-moi à trouver quelque chose qu'on puisse donner à M. Borge vendredi et à tous les ministres qui vont être là. On a un autre ministre demain, M. Gégaud, qui va être là. Je voudrais qu'on avance concrètement là-dessus et aidez-moi à faire ça. Donc la question est ouverte, mais qu'est-ce qu'on va faire après BioMarine et qu'est-ce qu'on va proposer de concret? Merci.
Who's going to tackle that first?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Well, I have a simple one. I know it sounds self-serving, but I would like to see in 3 years an ocean acidity network. I think this issue of ocean acidity is a sleeper issue. It was not even mentioned in The Inconvenient Truth. And what I've come away from here is there's goodwill, there's the technology, there's certainly the resources. And instead of taking 12 years to build the robotic network as we did for Argo, on 26 scientists, each with a 3-year grant, I think we should make a commitment to at least do that. And to me, that's a step in understanding how the biology, how the life of the ocean will be affected by our actions. I hope my colleagues have grander vision, but that at least, I think, is my concrete contribution.
David, let's forget Plastiki for a second. What else?
How can you forget Plastiki?
It's a tough exercise, but I'm sure we can do that
can
for
everyone make
1
sure they
minute or
collect
two.
their bottles? I need a bed. It's an interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of forums, there's a lot of discussions, there's a lot of debates. And I think that ultimately there's a saying that somebody said, and I'm not going to claim it for myself, but nobody's as clever as everybody. And I think this really sums up, a room full of solutions. This is what basically sitting here. So I think whether it be on acidification of our oceans, whether it be on overfishing, whether it be on creating marine reserves, whether it be creating underwater mapping, whether it being a lunatic and trying to sail across the Pacific on a boat, plastic bottles. We all have something to contribute. And I think what we need to be able to do, and something concrete, is to be able to make sure that we keep the momentum going. I think there's tools now available to do that. I think the big thing is asking questions. Do not underestimate the power of asking questions. Curiosity is a great driver of change, and it continues to drive change. But we need to be able to make sure that there's a clear path from the scientific community to the consumer. And that has always been at falter, I think. It's very hard. And right now is a very, very fragile time. We had inconvenient truth. It tipped the media. In the last 18 months, we had a massive plethora of green issues, green this, green that. And it's now become a thing. And I say that from the point of view that it's been externalized. So what does that mean? I've brushed my teeth, I come to BioMarine, and I've done my thing, my green thing. I feel better. Tick. I've ticked the box. We need to make sure that we don't do the same with the oceans. If we are going to create the blue thing, if we are going to try and create the momentum that was generated on Earth for our oceans, I would think wisely about where the consumer lies today. The science is as strong as ever. Everyone in this room knows without a doubt that the resources and the way that things are going is not great. But we also know that although the list of problems is this big, the list of solutions is this big. And I think the ability to connect you guys, to ask questions, to create a filter mechanism, a glossary of terminology that the consumer can digest and relate, is a really, and that's where the resources go. I'll be honest with you, I've been to a lot of websites, and you sit there and I look and I go, huh, what's that? You know, and I'm just a consumer. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a politician. I have no other agenda apart from to get people curious. And I think it's really important to be able to translate all the work that's done across all the different sectors, whether it be a marine reserve, all the way through. So my vision would be to say, get curious. And if you can start maybe a curiosity stamp for the oceans, and put it out there and create a web that's open source and that is allowing everybody to contribute, because nobody is as clever as everybody.
Yeah, go ahead. Peter, yes.
Yeah, three key messages for a political audience, both nationally here and across Europe in the EU, would be: one, the actions that are now coming forward under the action plan, follow them vigorously. Strategy is great, but the action that comes from it, and it's encouraging to see the science strategy be produced on time. Together with the volume of science that's happening, funded across EU and member states at the moment, I firmly believe and would reiterate the view that having accurate maps and real-time observational capability cost-effectively put in place will serve Europe at an order of magnitude greater than science has ever been able to serve Europe and the world at large in the next 10 years. And it's doable, and it's feasible, and it's of a cost that is achievable, even in targeted and difficult financial times, and keep the momentum up.
Sandra, voulez ajouter quelque chose?
Oui, on était il y a quelques semaines au congrès de l'UICN à Barcelone, et à Barcelone il y a eu plusieurs motions bien sûr sur la protection des requins. Ça fait des années que je travaille dessus, et malheureusement, si bien tous les pays veulent aider à protéger les requins, il n'y a pas en ce moment des politiques précises pour la conservation des requins dans le monde entier. La plupart des pays, même en Europe, on ne sait pas quelles sont les quantités de requins qui sont en train de sortir de l'eau. Donc, une des motions qui a passé d'ailleurs à l'UICN, c'était que les pays acceptent que tous les requins qui sont pêchés arrivent avec les ailerons sur les corps. Pourquoi? Pour ainsi pouvoir faire des recherches scientifiques et savoir quelles sont les quantités de requins qui arrivent, quelles sont les espèces, etc. Et avec cette information, pouvoir commencer à faire les plans d'action sur la protection des requins, qui n'est pas encore quelque chose de fait. Donc je pense qu'une des choses qui devrait sortir de BioMarine, c'est encourager les pays européens que s'il y a des ailerons qui arrivent, bien sûr, sur le continent, il y ait donc des certificats des pays comme quoi les requins étaient arrivés à port avec les ailerons, et comme ça il y a une démarche scientifique qui peut se faire.